Well, hey, everybody. Happy Saturday night. Recording Mike in the Midwest a bit early. Got a little bit of time. So we're going to do this tonight instead of tomorrow. So here we go. Oops. Got to fix that real quick. Don't want that. Let's do this. Bring this over here. And here we go. 259. Welcome to episode number 259 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find at beourguestpodcast.com. But you know where to find it. You're a patron of the show. Hopefully, you're having a great weekend. We are recording this one a bit early. That's right. If you're checking your feed, boom, it's already there. It's Saturday night, August 16th, 2025. In case you're checking this one out later on down the road. Yes, we're in the studios a bit early because we have such an exciting social life here in Missouri. We're back from Texas Roadhouse. Mallory has gone off with her cheerleading friends, spending the night. So, yeah, I had a little bit of free time and I thought, you know what? I'm going to record Mike in the Midwest tonight instead of tomorrow morning. Why not? I have a few hours. We're not doing anything tonight before we get ice cream later. Of course, we do it Dairy Queen on Saturday nights. So I'm going to jump into the studio and get the show out a bit early. So here we are. And hopefully you catch us on the feed for that Sunday morning coffee, session on the front porch, maybe, or whatever you do. Maybe on the treadmill. Maybe you're walking the dog. Hopefully it's not doing the dishes or your run, whatever it is. I'm just glad you're here. Thanks for being a patron of the show. I hope you're having a great weekend. It's a hot one here in the Midwest. Again, the heat is back. We're under another heat advisory. Man, the heat index this afternoon, 110. It is smoking hot, just like it is down in Orlando. For all those folks that have been down at Walt Disney World lately, I've noticed it is super hot. So I've seen a lot of people having great vacations, but you do have to take those precautions. It is super hot. We also have Hurricane Aaron, first hurricane of the year. Man, that thing blew up this morning. It went from a category 3 to a category 5. That thing is a monster right now. So hopefully that thing starts to turn more on a northerly course like it's supposed to. But this morning it was still continuing a little bit west and south, which was never a good thing. But the track is still to keep it off of Florida, up the eastern seaboard and off the land. So let's hope that happens because we have a lot of friends over there on the East Coast. We don't need any of that nonsense. But we did see that the Disney Treasure that headed out to sea today on a 7-night cruise. This cruise that went out this afternoon was supposed to be an Eastern Caribbean cruise, changed to a Western Caribbean cruise. So for the safety of everybody involved, great call by Disney Cruise Line. But I do understand because we do have some folks on that cruise that are in the Discord over in the clubhouse that, you have all your port adventures planned and you're excited because you've been doing all the research probably for 6 months to a year. Then all of a sudden you're not going to those places, but better to be safe, better to have more calm seas probably. And Western Caribbean, a lot of fun. Grand Cayman, Falmouth, you got Cozumel. I love Cozumel. There's so much to do in Cozumel. And of course, you're going to go Castaway Cay, some sea days. It's going to be fun. And here's the thing. I told Pam about this morning and she's like, but they're going to be on the Treasure. I mean, for a 7-night cruise, didn't you say the Treasure's like such a great ship? I was like, you're right. The Treasure is an amazing ship. So if you had to not even port for 7 days, the Treasure is an amazing ship. So Cozumel, Grand Cayman, Falmouth, Castaway Cay, lots to do, sea days in between. Everybody's going to have a great time. And she also drove home the point with the fact that they're not doing laundry. They're not working. Somebody's putting chocolate on their pillows and they're having 5 desserts every night for dinner. I was like, in Carousel of Progress where the dad says, she cuts to the core or whatever, the apple cuts to the core or whatever. Sarah cuts to the core. I'm terrible with quotes. That's really pretty much what my wife did. She's like, that's it. Like, nobody's doing laundry, nobody's working. You're getting 5 desserts at dinner. How bad can life be if you have to switch from the Eastern to the Western? I know it's not great, but they're beating us. We thought we had a big night because we just got back from Texas Roadhouse. And that was good, but it wasn't Disney treasure like going to the Coco restaurant or going to 1923. I mean, Palo, I mean, that'd be a plus, but you take what you get. Texas Roadhouse was okay. I mean, we had the rolls. I have my chicken critters. It's all good. I'm Mike in the Midwest. If I did anything else, I'd have to have a fancy podcast. We're Mike in the Midwest. We're on brand right here with Texas Roadhouse. And we take a sponsorship. If you want to come out, Texas Roadhouse will take you. Anyway, we're here. Hopefully you're having a great weekend. Let's see what else is going on. Today, it's move-in day at Mizzou. So all the incoming freshmen have headed out to Columbia, Missouri, out to Central, Mid-Mo to move in. A lot of Mallory's friends are moving into Mizzou this weekend. And so, of course, last night they had a big send-off. Like, Mallory went over to a bunch of her friends. They had, little get-togethers, little parties as they, kind of had their last little hurrah. And then this morning, a lot of the girls with their families, convoys with the trailers and everything, moving the kids into the dorms out at Mizzou. And so, man, I'm just saying, I know that Mallory's a senior this year, so I get to have one more ride at Howell and get to enjoy all the senior activities, which already started because Pam's on the boosters and she's ordering all the senior sweatshirts for the moms for cheer this year. And all the senior, we're getting these, I don't know why I'm whispering. Mallory's not here and she doesn't listen to this show, but all the dads are getting these Hawaiian shirts for the competitions, for the cheerleading competitions. We're going to Kansas City next month, and we got, some other competitions throughout the year. Dads are getting Hawaiian shirts to wear to the competitions, but they have our girls' faces on them with the H. They're going to be awesome. I cannot wait to wear that when they come in. So we're getting the senior thing, but man, but I feel these parents, and Scotty G is going through this right now, right? I think he drops M off next weekend. I don't think it's this weekend. I think it's next weekend, I believe. And it's just, it's one of those things, because I've already done this one time. We did this with Paige back in 2015. 10 years ago. Holy smokes, 10 years ago. But it's really something, because you see all the, with social media, you see, especially on Facebook, you see the post saying, I dropped my daughter off. I saw a post this afternoon. It said, I dropped my daughter off at Southwest Missouri, or Missouri University, or Missouri State University. It's called, used to be called Southwest Missouri State down in Springfield. And I left her in Springfield, but I also left part of my heart in Springfield. And I get that. I mean, you're leaving your daughter, your son, and they're going to thrive. I mean, this is the natural progression of things. Dennis has talked about this very well, very eloquently in the Discord, right? He's got 2 sons, and this is how things have to go. This is how things are supposed to go. Because you bring them up all the way from the time they're little babies, in diapers and stuff. And then you drop them off at kindergarten. That's super hard. And then, you see them progress through elementary school. And I mean, I taught elementary school and I taught almost every grade. So you see them, hit ththese benchmarks all the way through 6th grade. Then you push them into middle school and you're like, oh my God, they're going to get eaten alive in 7th grade. This middle school is so huge, and they're going to get stuffed in lockers. They're going to get lost. They're never going to find their classes when they got to switch, and they only get 5 minutes between. They survive. Then they get thrown into a high school, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're never going to make it into a high school. Like, it's crazy. The seniors are like grown adults, and my kid is a 9th grader. There's still a baby. There's never, they're going to get, sold meth, and, like, you think the worst. Like, as a parent, you're just like, this is not going to work. Like, I got a baby and they're going to school with adults. And, if they get put on the football team, they're going to get killed by some dude that's going to be a D1 athlete. It's going to run my son over, whatever. You have all these nightmares, and, for the most part, it usually works out, and I know that, like, I'm kind of self-talking myself here, but it works that way for college too. Because I remember, like, we had always been to Mizzou with Paige. We're season ticket holders. We went out there all the time to the football games. We were very comfortable with the campus. Like, we'd been back and forth to Mizzou 20, 30 times probably. But that last time we had to leave her, it broke my heart. But it was okay. Like, 4 years later, she graduated. We went to the Hearn Center. She walked across stage, she got a degree, and like it was the proudest moment of my life. It was incredible because I couldn't go to Mizzou, I couldn't afford it, but she got to go and got a degree. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And that's just how things are going to happen. So I know a lot of parents are going through this or getting ready to, and I am praying for you and I'm thinking about you, and I know you're going to be okay. And a lot of us could be going through this again soon. So we're going to all get through this together. And, but I know that this is a rough time. This is a rough time for parents. So hang in there. And, even for the other end of the spectrum, I know a lot of our parents are sending their kids off to kindergarten for the first time. It's the exact same thing. Instead of them being 6 foot tall, they're 5 years old. The maturity level sometimes exactly the same. I'll tell you that, but it's the same thing. They're still our babies, whether they're going off to college or whether they're going off to kindergarten. You love them the same, and it's the same thing. So we're all in this together. Come over to the clubhouse, though. It is like a big parent support group in there because we can tell stories. We can help each other out because a lot of us are on different checkpoints in this journey, but that's what I love. Another thing I want to brag on the clubhouse real quick before we get too far is just without getting into details, because if you're in the clubhouse, and if you're not, you need to go over there because it's free for everybody. And I'll be honest, when I started the clubhouse, I wanted to, I shouldn't say I wanted to. I thought about starting the clubhouse as just a Patreon only thing because there's a lot of podcasts where the Discord server is for the patrons only. I listened to a tech podcast, This Week in Tech, the Twit Network, where you only can be in the Discord if you're a member of their VIP club, which is their Patreon system. So you can't be in it unless you're a patron. There's other podcasts out there where you have to be a patron to be on the Discord. And I thought about that. And I hope because you guys are the patrons, you guys support the show, you make the show what it is. And I appreciate you. I can't even express how much I care about you guys and appreciate that you let me do the show for everybody, for the greater good. But I keep the Patreon open to everybody for a couple of reasons. One is that when I was younger, when I was coming up, I didn't have a whole lot. And, there were a lot of times where I didn't have a whole lot, but I would have loved to have had access to a show like this. And I would have loved to have had access to what we have in the Patreon. I don't know if I would have even had $5 a month to give, to be honest. But I would have promoted the heck out of a show that I liked, like on Twitter, on Facebook. I would have promoted it like that way. I'd have done a review. I would have supported the show non-financially. I'm not saying please don't support the show financially because I need your support. I really appreciate it and I need it. But I want to make that option available to everybody. And I'm not one who wants to take anything away from folks that can't be in there. And I think the thing is that if everybody can get into that Discord, it makes it better for everybody, for the patrons. If it was just for the patrons, it'd be a small, not as active, not as vibrant community. I love our community because what I was getting at was earlier this week, we had a person in our Discord who hadn't been there in a while because of something that happened in her family. And she posted about it. And the way everybody else jumped in to rally around this person and her family it honestly brought me to tears because people went out of their way to support this person in so many ways, prayers, thoughts, but also doing things to help make this person's future vacation better, to give support. You do not see that on the internet. These are people that stop their day to help this person. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being such good people, because if you saw it, it's hard to describe. What you see on Twitter, what you see on Facebook, what you see on all these other places on the internet a lot of times is either indifference or petty fighting. And this was the opposite. This was somebody that didn't ask for help. She just explained, hey, we're going on a trip. I missed you guys, and explained why she was missing. And then everybody kind of just said, we're going to rally around you. We're going to help you. And it was amazing. So I just wanted to let you guys know that you guys are amazing and we really appreciate you. So anyway, that's kind of the beginning of the show. That was on my mind and just wanted to say thank you for that. All right. So let's see the feedback from last week's show. Last week, we talked about the Nintendo Wii. Man, that was a hot minute when we had the Nintendo Wii everywhere. It took over, especially Wii Sports. I'm glad I still have a left shoulder. Now my left shoulder is not what it used to be, mostly from pitching back in the day in high school and middle school and elementary school. I pitched a lot. But I swear Wii bowling probably took a little damage because that was the underarm motion. But oh my gosh, Wii bowling was so fun. And then I forgot about this until after the show, which is how everything goes with podcasting. There was another game that followed up after Wii Sports. It was called Wii Sports Resort, and you got like there was like an add-on to the remote. It was like I think it was like a gyroscope that went over the Wiimote, and it had kind of a silicone sleeve that you put on it. It made the Wiimote a little bit bigger, gave it another sensor, and it came with other sports. The sport that Paige and I used to play nonstop on that game, excuse me, was basketball, of course, right? Because Paige was a baller, still is. And there was like this 3-point shooting contest on that thing. And so that was overhead. We played that. I mean, we would play that nonstop. It was like because we used to bowl, and then it became this incessant 3-point shooting contest. And the thing was, I don't know what it is, but it's probably because of how competitive Paige and I are. Like, we're super competitive. Mallory's not as competitive as Paige and I. It's weird. Like, Paige and I are super competitive with each other. Mallory, she doesn't. I wish she was more competitive. Kind of drives me nuts because I'm competitive. But I know that, like, and it bugs me. Like, back when the Wii was popular, I'd see kids like sitting on their butt, barely moving the Wiimote, and like getting high scores on those kind of like sports games. Like, I know that you don't have to do everything. No. When Paige and I would play the 3-point shooting contest, we're standing and we're going through all the motions. Like, I'm looking like Larry Bird. I know. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I just talked about my generation, but I'm back at the 3-point line. I mean, I am working up a sweat because that's how you're supposed to do it. It's supposed to be active. But some kids like sitting on the couch, like just barely moving the remote and hitting the threes like nobody's business. So we're like just dying, but it was so much more fun that way. But yeah, I forgot about Wii Sports Resort, I think it was called. It was like the next edition, and it had that extra sensor. There was like a sword fighting game. There were a couple other games on there, but it was like, it took it to the next level. But man, it made it more fun. So God, the Wii was, and then taking it to the nursing home, that was the best. That was one of my best teaching moments ever. I love that because my kids got to work with the elderly folks, and it was just super cool. I wish I could do that again. All right, let's get to the feedback. Dennis, speaking of Dennis, here's Dennis from Texas, says, the day I purchased our Wii, I'd been called for jury duty. It was a busy day at the courthouse, and at lunchtime, they still hadn't decided if they needed everyone that was summoned, even after they selected juries for 4 cases. So they let me take a lunch break for an hour. I grabbed a burger, but still had time to kill, so I went to a Best Buy to look around. After looking for a Wii for months with no luck, I was surprised to see they had one in stock. My oldest was 4 at the time. My wife and I would usually play Wii bowling after he went to bed. One night he snuck up on us and the gig was up. At the age of 4, he became the Wii bowling champion of the house and got the sparkly ball before anyone else. In later years, we would take the Wii with us on long trips to see our family, and having bowling tournaments similar to what you described, it was truly a gaming system fit for the whole family. I love to hear that. That's so cool because, it was a big, big deal in our family. Like I said, I posted some pictures. I posted pictures in the Discord. Like, we had a traveling trophy. We had the big brackets on the wall that I made. It looked like the NCAA tournament. And, people would be upstairs having the cake and watching TV. And I'd be like, okay, it's Zoe against Paige. And then, they go downstairs and bowl. And I'd be like, okay, Zoe beat Paige. So now it's Zoe, we go to the other side of the bracket. Now it's Taylor against Jared. And then they'd have to go downstairs and battle. It was so fun. Those were the days. It was before everybody played on their phones as much. Trisha says, up in Wisconsin, I was never the biggest video game fan, but my younger brother was. We had several iterations of Nintendo systems. I enjoyed Mario Party, particularly the mini games. Sadly, my brother is a bit of a severe loser, so the enjoyment faded quickly. And contrary to my poor Splitsville score, I was a decent Wii bowler. We didn't play tournaments, but during the hottest months of the summer, many a game was played in the basement when my dad would carry down our only television, the one with the faux wood paneling. Nice. Yes. And we should do a whole show about basements in the summertime in the Midwest. It was nothing better. I mean, the heat index, like I said today, I think it was 110 this afternoon. And I'm in the basement right now because it's just the only place to be in this house. Even though Pam's on, so it looks like it's going to rain. So Pam's out walking her last 2 miles because it finally like clouded over. And she says, I'm going out now. If it rains, it rains, but at least it's clouded over and it's not so hot because she's got to finish her last 2 miles of the walk into the day. So I'm like, okay, good. I'm going downstairs and I'm recording Mike in the Midwest early because I'm nothing to do. All right, here we go. And Billy Bean says, hey, Mike, what a great story and great project for your class to undertake. It'd be nice if there was an exchange program where students could share things like your class did and senior citizens could teach skills and hobbies. Hope you're having a great week and that Pam is settling into the fact that even if the school year is starting, she only has to enter a school building if she chooses to. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because and I like that idea though, because the thing is seniors have so many stories to share. That's what I did notice. Like the kid, and I did tell my kids, like, let the folks talk to you. Because like I said, there were folks that wore the hats, like the veterans, so like, Vietnam veteran, World War II veteran, like ask them, if you see a veteran with a hat on, ask them like, what did you do in the service, and let them talk and listen. And then tell me the story. Cause I want them to I want to listen. I gave them a reason so they could tell me the story. And but there should be more of that because it makes the senior feel better because they're heard. But man, our kids never get to have that kind of an experience. There's so many of that generation that are so few that are still around. And they were the greatest generation. There's very, very few, very, very few. And what an honor. I mean, they're the greatest among us. And, nobody asks them about their service anymore. And even if they weren't in the service, just what was it like to live in our town in the 1960s? Did you have any kids? What did your kids, what did your kids do? Stuff like that. And, what did you, like, we play the Nintendo Wii. What did you do when you were a kid? Like, did you ride bikes, stuff like that? Did you go roller skating? Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, about Pam. So she's in charge of the cheer boosters. And so they do this thing in October called the Little Cheer Clinic, which is, the cheerleaders, all the high school cheerleaders they put on a clinic for all the little girls in our town to come on a Sunday morning to learn how to become a cheerleader. It's for all the way from like kindergartners all the way up to 7th graders or 8th graders. And they learn, routine from our cheerleaders, and they get to do it at a home football game at halftime. So they kind of get to learn what it's like to be a cheerleader. Well, so what they do to promote this program is they take flyers to all the schools in the school district to give out at their Meet the Teacher nights. And so Pam has been going around distributing these flyers to all the schools. So they have them so that when our cheerleaders go to man the tables during Meet the Teacher nights, that the flyers are already there. And so she's been in and out of all these elementary and middle schools. And she's like, oh, I kind of miss it. I'm like, shut up. How do you miss it already? Like, you just retired. Like you haven't even really missed school yet. Like, school's not even back. Like, it's just like, nah, I'm okay. I'm like, I hope you're okay. Like, you can't miss it yet. Like, I mean, school, like, I'm like, because, and we had this discussion, like, this is the good stuff. Like, this is the stuff that I miss. Like, I do miss the excitement of a new school year. I miss the excitement of when the school was like fresh in a brand new year and that school was shiny like a new penny, and like that anticipation of like I love the new whole school year. I mean, I love being a teacher. I loved it. Like, that was cool. Like, all the supplies are new. All the stuff in the hall looks fresh. I mean, come get me in November. Like, when you feel like you got hit by a truck, like, yeah, no, don't sign me up for that. Like, and everybody's sick and blowing noses on you, like you're got report cards due tomorrow and you don't have enough grades in science, yeah, no. Anyway, I told her slow your roll. And then Adam just says, you're amazing. I say to Adam, no, you're amazing, Adam. Thank you. So if you have any feedback on this show or any other show, please, please, please leave it at patreon.com be our guest podcast. All right. So this topic for today is coming from the Clubhouse. We had a great discussion in the living room channel about generations. Somebody posted just a poll, I think it was Paul, about what generation are you in? Generation X, Generation Z, Millennial, Generation Boomer, all this kind of stuff. And it was super interesting, not for the fact that I think Millennial won by a whisker, and then Generation X was right behind them. But it was the discussion that was had. And then there was a follow-up, like who had the best music, the 80s, the 90s, the 60s, and so forth. I think the 90s were winning by a whisker over the 80s, possibly. I'm not sure. I haven't checked lately. But nor here nor there. But here's the thing. The discussion was great around it. And I love our Clubhouse because we all come from different perspectives. So we could talk about this. And I got to just thinking about, like, I can only relate to what I've lived. I'm Generation X, right? Because I grew up, I was born in 73, the very end of 73. And I love being Generation X. And I've talked about this on the podcast many times. Like, I love that I am Mike in the Midwest. Like, I love where I live. Like, to me, the Midwest is where it's at. Now, if I lived in New York City, I hope that I would say that New York City is where it's at. Or if I lived in, Long Beach, California, I would hopefully that Mike from Long Beach, California is where it's at, because I think that you should always be happy and proud of where you're from. Like if I was from Idaho or Texas or Minnesota or Canada, whatever, I just think you should always be proud of where you're from. And I'm just that kind of person. I can see the positive in most things. And I do love where I'm from. There's a lot to be said. Like there's a lot of things we don't have. I mean, we don't have a lot of, we don't, we're not like New York City or Chicago. We don't, Paige tells me, we have this, but we don't have that. And sometimes it's a good thing we don't have that. Like it's fine because we don't have traffic and stuff like that either. So anyway, we got talking about the generations, and I'm Generation X. And I was thinking about, I love that I am, and I want to give some reasons why I'm happy that I'm Generation X, but I want to get feedback to my millennial friends. And I want to hear, like, what's your response to what I say about Generation X? And my other Generation Xers, do you agree? And what are some of the things I left out? When I'm thinking about being Generation X, some of the things I think that are pretty cool about this, I was thinking about this like from being a teacher's point of view. Okay. When I was teaching, so I became a teacher like in 1998 is when I started teaching, like full time, sixth grade, second grade. And then I moved to sixth grade. It was a pretty wild time. And here's what sparked this thought is that I saw an ad the other day that I posted in the Clubhouse about how Apple came out with the Mac, and it was that we called it the Skittles Mac. It was that Mac that had the different colors, like the translucent colors, like the blue, the orange, the teal. There was like 6 colors of those Skittles. I think they're G3 Macs. And we had all these Macs in our school district where I taught. And it seemed like we were on some kind of a contract. I didn't even know this at the time. We must have been on some kind of fat contract at our school district because we got new Macs every year. Now we got them for the computer lab, and we got 2 per classroom. So I had one in the corner of the classroom for the kids to use. And I took the second one because my principal didn't care. And I put it on my desk so that I could use it to like enter my grades and email parents and stuff like that. We had this old email program way back then. It was called Eudora. And it was like a standalone program to email parents. I mean, it's like didn't have Gmail or anything like that back then. You had to use this program called Eudora to email parents. And very few parents had email, but I was always like somebody who wanted to play with technology. Like I was the only, plus me and Dave, my colleague across the hall, Dave, who was in our wedding, he taught 5th grade. We were the only 2 teachers that had computers on our desks in the building, because everybody else had the 2 computers and they sat next to each other in the corner of the room. So the kids each classroom had 2 computers the kids could use. We snaked one of those computers for ourselves. I mean, really, those 2 computers were supposed to both be for the kids, but we brought one. We told the principal, like, it's better if we can do grades and stuff on our computers so that we can serve the kids better. I mean, she didn't say anything. She didn't really know what was going on. So the way we got it to work, though, it was kind of funny. We had to run the Ethernet cord. We had drop ceilings in our school. So we had to run the Ethernet cord because our teacher desk was on the opposite side of the room from where the computers were. So we had to run the Ethernet cord through the ceiling all the way across our classrooms and drop it on the other side of the room to our teacher desks. So the way we did that was we had a OSHA should not hear this. So we had like one of those carts, those rolling carts that you put the big TV on with the VCR. Now this is old, right? This is like in the late 90s that wasn't being used on wheels. And so what we did was one of us stood on the cart with wheels and fished the cord like from panel to panel to panel to panel all the way across our classroom. We had to move the desks out of the way like part in the Red Sea until we got to our desk. And so the other one of us like pushed it, like slowly rolled it so we could fish it all the way across and then dropped it down. Then we like used electrical tape to like tape it to the wall. It looks so bad. And then finally we got something to cover it up so it looked a little bit better. And then dropped it so we get the Ethernet cord. Cause again, it wasn't wireless. You had to have a Ethernet cord to get it to connect to the internet. But that's how we did it. And I mean, oh my God, like if somebody saw us, we'd have been in big trouble. Cause like that was so unsafe. We're rolling each other across the classroom on a rolling cart that's meant for a TV. But that's how we did it. Anyway. So I don't even know where I was going with this. Oh, so my generation though. But so that was like the birth of computers being in classrooms. And it was so wild because think about it now, like at the beginning of this school year, kids can't, in Missouri, it's illegal to bring in cell phones to the classroom. This school year coming up in the whole state of Missouri, kids cannot use cell phones in the classrooms. They passed a law. So no earbuds, no smartwatches, no iPads, no electronics. They cannot be, you get in trouble. Like, and I don't know how this is going to go. I'm glad I don't have to police this at the high school starting on Monday, because that is going to be a nightmare. But that's the deal. No more electronics. But I got to be there like on the cutting edge of like when nobody even had email and you had one computer in your classroom, a desktop, and the kids didn't know how to do anything on it except use it for accelerated reader back then. Like you'd read a book, you go take a quiz on it, you get some points, and it'd go into your account. That was basically it. And then I remember when we had what were called iBooks. I think that's what they're called. They were Apple's first like laptops. They were very cool looking. They were colored and translucent, and they opened up with this clamshell. And we had a set of those that would go around the whole district. And this lady that was like a tech specialist would come in like once a month and do these programs with our kids, teach them how to do a couple things. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, like these laptops. And then eventually, like I was, doing Chromebooks with my kids and gifted. And eventually everybody got a Chromebook as just like a school book. But I mean, it's Generation X. Like I got to go from nothing as a teacher to everybody has the internet all the time in their pocket to today, where it's like they're trying to go the other extreme. Like, no, we don't want everybody to have the internet all the time. Like it's gone full backwards. Like the pendulum swung both ways. So that's just one of the things I was thinking about that got me really thinking about the generations. Now, another reason why I'm happy about being Generation X, I mean, we also grew up without the internet, and God bless it, we grew up without the internet, because I played outside all the time. We played wiffle ball. I did have a computer, which was great because I was a computer nerd as a kid, but I had a Commodore 64. First I had an Atari 2600, then I had a Commodore 64, and I used that thing to death. I had many of them because I would burn out the power supply. I went from the bread bin one to a Commodore 64C, which had kind of a slicker case and keyboard, because I got that like upgraded for like another Christmas. But I ran a BBS on that, and I used to connect. People would call it every night. I had a second phone line. It was on 24 hours a day. It was kind of like the first version of the Clubhouse. People would call in from all over St. Louis, leave messages. We'd have discussions. We even had little meetups in St. Louis where people would come, and we had a picnic one time down in Fenton, Missouri, for people that listened to, or didn't listen. That wasn't a podcast. People that called my BBS. It was wild. It was called The Far Side. But that was like cutting edge telecommunications back for Generation X back then. That was cool. But like my generation, we had like Saturday morning cartoons, and that was a ritual. I don't know. Like, I don't think millennials had that. Like, and the thing was, even on top of that, is Generation X, you had appointment television. Like you either saw it or you didn't. Like on Saturday mornings, I remember many times where if you slept too late and you missed your favorite cartoon, like I remember being like really sad because I had to wait a whole nother week to see that cartoon. Like you would really be sad. You couldn't go on the internet to check it out, or, it's going to be playing again, on an alternate channel in 2 more hours. It was another week and you missed that episode. I used to love the Pac-Man cartoon when I was a kid. Um, Speaking of that, like Generation X, like we got to be there on the bleeding edge of arcade games. I remember what a huge deal it was when like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong came out to our skating rink, where Frogger, when Frogger came to Aloha, like it was nuts. It was insanity. Like my dad was hooked on Donkey Kong, and it was just like but like your mind was blown. I mean, if you could have known what 2025 would have looked like in like 1981 at 1982, our generation back then, man, like shocking. I'm trying to think what else. To me, the 80s music is the best. We were talking about the best music. I love the 80s music. It's nostalgia. Everybody's got their own genres. I mean, I saw Scott put the 60s. He'd get along well with my dad. My dad programmed a 60s radio station here in St. Louis for years. He's a program director. So those two need to hook up. But also I grew up in the era of roller rinks. I mean, I literally grew up at a roller rink because my next door neighbors owned it. She babysat me. We were there 5-6 days a week, hours and hours on end. I mean, I probably spent as much time in that skating rink building than I did my house for years. It was just a time. And it was just like an era. Like you would just tell your parents, we're going to ride bikes. And at least like where I grew up, and I don't know where it was, like if for Generation X, like where you were, but you didn't have like a structured play. It would just be like, Ryan and I are going to ride bikes. And my mom would say, okay, well, come home for lunch. Cause we, go out like 9:00 in the morning in the summer and we just ride our bike. And we were about 2.5 blocks from the local elementary school. So we'd ride our bikes up to Duchesne Elementary. We'd do dumb stuff. We'd make like ramps. We'd, ride our bike down the slide, the little like kindergarten slide. We do all kinds of stupid stuff, but like we were never supervised. And, we weren't like breaking any laws or anything like that. But I mean, it was just like just kids free playing. And I don't know how other generations did that because I wasn't a part of that. Like by the time the millennials came around, right, I was probably teaching. Like I saw a lot of folks like born in like 1995 and stuff like that, of course. But like 1995, I remember like in 1996, I'm trying to remember like the benchmarks of what I did in each year. In 1996, I qualified for the nationals in speed skating. So I was in college. No, I was out of college. I was graduating college. So it just kind of puts it into perspective. But I do like that I was so pre-internet, but there was still technology emerging, arcades, the Commodore 64. And it wasn't just a machine that didn't have any kind of like interactivity. Now, 90% of the people that had a Commodore 64 did not connect to other people. They just used it to play games on it. But I was a nerdy kid and I ran a BBS and there were like these things called door games. People could play these interactive games. You'd call, you play your game, you take your turn, and then the next person come in and play your turn. You call back and play your turn and so forth. But, it was a time, right? I mean, like MTV generation, that was us. The first time you got to see music, and it was a big deal. Like I did. And also Sunday morning on the way to church, listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40. That was a huge deal to me, a huge deal. And then I always prayed, knock on wood, that we get out of church early enough because church would maybe get out before noon. That we get out enough time to hear what the number one song was. Because if you didn't, you're always like, what was the number one song this week? You always wanted to know like what came in first. But it was, it was a great generation. And it was one of the, like, even like growing up for me, and I don't know how it was where you were, but like stores were still closed on Sundays. There was something in Missouri, at least it was called the Blue Law, and you couldn't shop on Sundays. The stores were closed. And so for us, Sundays, we went to church. And then every Sunday right after church, we went to my grandparents' house, my dad's parents. Grandma left church early because she went earlier and went to the first service. And she would come home and make a big old Sunday lunch for us. And so right after church, we go to their house. We'd have Sunday lunch. And then we'd stay there for like 2 or 3 hours after lunch and just hang out. And that's where in the fall and in the wintertime, like I would go through the Sears Wish book and, circle the things with different color highlighters. I get, a color. My sister would get a color. My cousins get a different color. We pick out the stuff we wish Santa would bring for us. And, even different times of the year, they had a fire, they had a stove in the living room. You'd sit by the stove and just my grandpa would tell stories. You'd watch we had a football Cardinals, back then our football team was the St. Louis Cardinals. So we watch Jim Hart play football, Neil Lomax, Roy Green, Pat Tilley, all those guys, Dan Durdorf back in the day. And you just sit there and it'd be my dad, my grandpa, my mom, my grandma. And, you just sat there and they had a backyard. You go out and play in the backyard and, you just didn't realize how good you had it. So there was no technology. We had those little handheld, like little football games. Those were fun. We'd tinker with those, but I loved being Generation X because we didn't have to have a lot of distractions. I just think I think as we go, we just get so many more distractions, but maybe not. Maybe again, I can't see it from different perspectives because I didn't get to live it. But this is where I want to hear from you guys. That's what I think is great about my generation. I'm proud of my generation, but what about your generation? Like what's the kicker for you guys? And what did I miss for Generation X? So let me know. And hopefully I brought back some good memories for you. So again, patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Going to jump out of here and wish you a great Sunday. Don't forget, we're going to have a live call-in show Sunday night, 7:00 Eastern, 6:00 Central with Scotty G. Hope you'll be a part of that. And until then, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.